I welcome one and all for this today's BMCRI 2020 PG batch. Welcome to this PG orientation synopsis writing. I could see there are about hardly 87 participants out of 260 postgraduates admitted to the BMCRI. This orientation program is mandatory for all the postgraduates. You have to attend. Your name will be recorded in the orientation online. Those who have not attended will be viewed seriously, and your thesis, your synopsis will not be reviewed during the ethical committee meeting, and you have to come with your PG and PG guide. Then the consequences are different. So this is a notice to information to all the postgraduates of first year. It's mandatory. All the 250 postgraduates has to attend. We do agree. Some patients are some pages are posted for the COVID duty, either in the Rajiv Gandhi trustees or boring and all. It's hardly about 9 students. We calculated that there are only 9 first year students. Remaining all are in the hostel or in the respective rooms. It's mandatory. Everybody has to come. So we'll checking your names and all in the website, whether you're attending or not. So based on that, your CV, your synopsis review, all those things will be considered. Madam Dr. Sushma, she's Associate Professor Pharmacology Department. Madam is going to brief regarding synopsis writing. What is the guidelines? The Rajiv Gandhi University, you all comes under Rajiv Gandhi University. As per Rajiv Gandhi guidelines, my thesis synopsis, how it should be, how many words of abstract or introduction, then review literature. I have taken a very interesting topic, but I am not getting the reference. What do I do? This is your headache. Before starting your thesis, you should discuss with your guide, your department PGs and all. Then you have to take the topic. Nothing is new in this world. So keeping all those things will be practical things. Madam is here in the 7-8 years in the BMCRI. She's a very student friendly. Madam will answer all your questions with a Rajiv Gandhi guidelines. What guidelines says regarding a postgraduate in the 3 years when he is in the Rajiv Gandhi Bangalore Medical College, thesis topic selection, how it should be the format, all those things will be discussed. I request everybody has to attend this PG orientation program. Otherwise, your thesis will not be, your review synopsis will not be accepted for this ethical committee presentation. It's a warning. So I request Madam Dr. Sushma, please continue with this, the PG orientation program. Once again, I welcome all the PGs for this PG orientation program, Bangalore Medical College. Thank you all. Video cut. Go ahead. Nothing more.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, so we are going to start with how you are going to write your synopsis. I think all of you are aware of the thing that you are supposed to write a synopsis. Okay, so coming to what is synopsis, this is going to be a 2-hour program, and then I'm afraid I'm not going to give you any time to ask me questions. You are going to only email me all the questions because of the time shortage. I hope you all have got your hard copies of the checklist which I have sent you online. So keeping that, you please write down what are all the do's and don'ts in each section which I'm going to tell you. So it's about 1.5 to 2-hour program. So in each section, please note down what are the do's and don'ts, because we don't want you to repeat the same mistake when you come for synopsis review. Okay, so we are, after this program, I think you will have about 15 to 20 days to finish your synopsis. And then there is a synopsis review committee headed by the principal and also HOD of medicine, Dr. Ravi, and few other members. We all are there in synopsis review committee. So you will give your synopsis for the review to that committee, where you will be asked a lot of questions which you have to answer. And then we will tell you it should be in RGHS format. That format will be explained to you. And that is what the checklist also says, which I have already sent you. So that's the format which you all have to follow. And then if it is not in the format, it will be rejected. You have to come back with your guide. for another review, another date will be given to you. So we request you not to do all those things. Please follow the format and carefully listen to what I'm trying to tell you, and also write down what I say, where a lot of you are going to do some mistakes. Okay, so all of you can please unmute yourself, sorry, mute yourself, and also the videos. Okay, right, I think most of you have come already. Can you all mute your, okay, right, I think we'll go ahead with the actual program. So I think all of you know what is a synopsis, right? So for your postgraduate, hello, okay, you all have to do a dissertation. Okay, you all have to do a dissertation before you become eligible for the exams. For that, you have to write a synopsis. So your synopsis is a very short document or a concept paper which we are going to submit to university for approval. When the approval comes, then we are going to start our thesis and then write the whole document, which is about 100 to 120 pages, and submit to university. But now coming to, please, I think I can hear somebody. Can all of you mute, please? Participants, please listen. Can all of you mute? Hello, hello. Hello, guys, please mute.
ಏನು ಹೋಗಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ ಸೀಕ್ರೆಟ್ ಹೆಸರೆಲ್ಲ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಐತೆ. ವಿಷ್ಣುಮೂರ್ತಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಂತದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅದು, ಹಾ ಟಿಕ್ ಹಾಕಿದಾರೆ ಸರ್, ಇದ್ರಾಗ ಐತೆ ನೋಡ್ರಿ ವಿಷ್ಣುಮೂರ್ತಿ.
Okay, sorry for that. So now this is a small document which is about 5 to 6 pages, which contains all the information about your dissertation, how you are going to do it, including the need for the study and what method you are going to follow, and then what statistical analysis you are going to do. It's a very brief document which we are going to submit online to university. Okay, so once it is reviewed by the competent authorities, it comes back, and then we are going to start our work on our dissertation. Okay, so once we upload it goes online. Please remember, all of you, it goes online to university. So once it goes online to university, what happens to your synopsis? From there it goes to all the colleges.
Madam, Dr. Sushma, please unmute all the participants. They are senseless people. They don't know the basic manners.
Okay, so now
they should mute their speaker. Please mute all the participants.
Okay,
please mute it. So they should maintain the etiquettes.
Okay, now what happens is that it goes online to the subject experts. If it is general medicine, it goes to a lot of professors all over Karnataka who are in general medicine, and they're going to review it, and then we get the report. Okay, so how does that happen? It happens only online, right? So now if somebody who's reviewing your synopsis, if they get some doubts, there is no face-to-face contact with them, so they will not be able to ask us any doubts. So that is where your whole document should be very, very clear, so that those people will not, those who are reviewing it will not have any doubts, or they'll not get any doubts. Right, so once it goes to university, what can happen to your synopsis? There are 3 things which can happen to your synopsis. One is registered. Okay, it can come back as registered. Registered means you're 100% thorough. I mean, it's 100% done. There is no need to resubmit or anything like that. You can continue with your dissertation work. The next one is provisionally registered. Provisionally registered is the expert has raised some queries. He might give you some comments. So you have to read all the comments and then correct it in your dissertation when you are doing it. There is no need for you to resubmit the synopsis. Okay, so the third one is not registered. When your synopsis comes back as not registered, that means there are a lot of queries, and some people may have to completely change the topic also, and those people have to take some time and resubmit to ethics committee of BMCRI. Once that is approved, again resubmit everything to university. So first of all, when we submit our synopsis to university, this whole process may take about 6 months. But if it comes back after 6 months as not registered, then again resubmission is going to take another 6 months. So you'll be literally losing 1 year just to get an approval from university. And that is where we don't want you to lose the time like that. And that gives you very less time to work on your dissertation. So please, when you are writing your synopsis, let it be very, very clear. Despite doing all this, around 10 to 20 synopsis comes back as not registered to BMCRI. Dr. Rangnath sir is going to tell you after 12 o'clock what were all the different reasons for which they were rejected. Okay, so that's about what happens to your synopsis when it goes to university. Okay, so if it is registered, then you can continue with your dissertation. If it comes back as provisionally registered, then you are going to correct all the comments in your dissertation. There's no need to resubmit. But if it comes back as not registered, then you have to resubmit to the university and wait for the approval. Okay. So that's about what happens to your synopsis. Next is. Okay, next is. Okay, writing synopsis. This is the first page. I think if you all open your checklist, there are first basic details which you should know. Name of the candidate and the address. Write your name which is registered in BMCRI, and address is BMCRI address. Okay, if you are writing your address, Department of Pharmacology, then Bangalore Medical College, Fort, and all that things, please don't write your residential address. It's the institute address which you're going to write. Then name of the institution, you know, course of the study and subject, write it properly. Date of admission to the course, please take the date from PT section, or if you know, write it properly. And I think most of you will have the same date of admission. Then again, go back to your checklist. We'll start with the title of the topic. So what is the title of the topic? This is very, very important, this whole topic. This has to be very precise and informative, and it should give out the purpose of the study. And there is a list which I've given you: study design, population, and study setting is not really necessary. If your title is too big, then don't worry about that. But here what I want to tell you is that don't put ambiguous terms, and please don't put any questions in your title. Is this a risk factor for diabetes or glaucoma? So is this what, all those questions, we don't want it. And please remember, we don't want any catchy titles in your synopsis. When you're writing a publication, you can go ahead and write your catchy titles. A pill is going to make you ill, and such kind of things are not necessary in a title. Okay, so what should a title really contain? We want you to write the purpose of the study. Okay, purpose of the study and study design, very, very important. Okay, study setting like tertiary care hospital or a referral hospital, that depends on whether your title is small or big. If it's too big and you cannot write the study setting, then don't write it. But if it is a little small title, then you can go ahead and write the study setting. Okay, so my advice to you is that when you are writing the title, don't write it in the initial part. Okay, you go ahead and write your whole synopsis. You write the need for the study, review, materials and methods and everything. By that time, you will understand your topic very well. At the end, you write a title. At least write 4 or 5 titles, then discuss with all your guides and your friends, and then you can get a proper title. If the title goes wrong, I think if it doesn't match with your objective or the purpose of the study, then it will be a big problem. Okay, so the title should be good. And then when you want to publish your dissertation, you can change your title however you want. Okay, so that is not a problem. So title, what is the best way of writing the title? Okay, the best way of writing the title is you write your primary objective first, and you take your primary objective. Most of the time it can become a title if you just add your study design. Please, all of you in your checklist, you can write down that primary objective can become your title. You just need to add the study design to it. Okay, but your objective itself is too big, then even study design you need not have to add, but your primary objective should be very clear, and that can very easily become the title of the topic. There's no word limit for your title and all that. Okay, so I'll give you a few examples of how your friends had written, and some of them are from some journals. Okay, the first example is paracetamol for patients with migraine. Okay, so you can give such kind of titles for your journals, but not for your synopsis, because I don't get actually what are you trying to do here, what is your objective of the study. Neither I get a study setting or a study design here. Okay, rather than that, we can say I want to study the efficacy and safety of paracetamol versus ibuprofen for migraine. It's a randomized control study. And please note down here, you're not supposed to do any clinical trials for your dissertation. Okay, if you are going to do a randomized study, you can say it is a randomized study. Okay, it cannot be a clinical trial. Don't write you are going to do a clinical trial for your dissertation. Okay, so this example gives you the objective. So this title is my objective. My objective is I want to study how effective is paracetamol as against ibuprofen in the treatment of migraine. So your objective can become a title, and if your title is small, you can as well add your study design. Okay, so the next one example is cardiac arrest among COVID-19 patients. Okay, so in this we do not understand again the objective. Okay, what is the purpose of the study and what is the design of the study is not at all clear to us. So you are going to reframe it as a study to evaluate the risk factors and outcomes of cardiac arrest among COVID-19 patients, a cohort study. Okay, and then the next one, I picked it up from a journal. It says anemia among school going children. Okay, so these are very short titles. You can always make it a little big. You can say a cross-sectional study to evaluate the prevalence and the factors associated with anemia among school-going children in Bengaluru. Okay, so again, one more caution is that you are not going to say unless it is a field study. Okay, P&SM guys are going to do field study, so they can use the word Bengaluru or urban population, things like that. But please don't say the words like South India and Bengaluru and all that, because we are doing, our study center is a very small center in Bengaluru or South India. Okay, even in your publication, please don't write such things. Okay, a cross-sectional study conducted in South India. Okay, so such things should not come out in your title. Okay, so that's about your title. Please write your title at the end after you have written the whole synopsis. Okay, and what is the best way of writing the title? You always take your primary objective and make it the title and add the study design to it. If your objective is too big, then you take off a few words, and then that can easily become your title. And please don't write any short forms. It's not TB in your title. It should be tuberculosis. Okay, so don't write short forms, and then no questions, and then no catchy titles. Okay, so that is your study title. And the next section is, please note down here the numbers are there. Okay, 6 is brief resume of your intended work. 6.1 need for the study. 6.2 is your review of literature, and 6.3 is objectives of the study. And in your synopsis, we want all these numbers to be there. Okay, these numbers are given by RGHS, so we want these numbers to be there. Don't miss 6, 6.1 and all that. Okay, so let's start with need for the study. So what's the need for the study? Need for this study is a brief background of the selected topic you have taken, and then it should contain about 150 to 250 words, or go up to a maximum of 300 words. Okay, and please don't go beyond 300 words, and that's the most common mistake all of you do. Okay, so please don't go beyond 300 words and 3 paragraphs. Okay, so 150 to 250 words and 3 paragraphs is very, very ideal way of writing your need for the study. And that about 2 to 3 or 4 relevant references should be enough for need for this study. Okay, so 250 or 300 words, max 300 words, don't go beyond it, and about 3 paragraphs. So what do these 3 paragraphs contain in your need for the study? This is the first section of your synopsis. So the reviewer needs to understand what is the need for the study. So this is a very important section in your synopsis. So in the first paragraph, we are going to just define the condition which you have taken for your study and the burden of the disease, epidemiology, like globally, okay, 15 million are affected, and in India, 9 million are affected, and things like that. So you're going to say what is the clinical condition and the burden. Okay, and then in the second paragraph, you are going to say what do we already know about that condition, okay, or the treatment. The current knowledge about the disease and its management would be your second paragraph. Okay, so in the third paragraph, you are going to say what are the lacunae or the gap in the knowledge, and what are the unanswered questions, or if there are any controversies, what are they? Okay, so that will be your third paragraph. And then based on that, you are going to give a justification for the study. And this is the section where most of you go wrong. In these 3 paragraphs, the first paragraph is like an introduction. Connect that to the second paragraph, and that should be connected to the third paragraph, and thereby you get a justification. Okay, if we go through an example, I think you'll understand. See, please write down, there are 3 paragraphs which you are going to write for need for the study, in which first you are going to define the clinical condition which you have taken for the study, and then you are going to tell us the burden of the disease. And in the second paragraph, you are going to tell us what is known to us already. In the third paragraph, you are going to tell us what are all the unanswered questions and because of which you have taken the study. It is very easy for you to understand. That whole justification will be missing in most of your synopsis. Okay, so that justification is very much required in your need for the study. Okay, if we go through an example, I think all of you will understand. Here, the most important thing is don't cross 300 words. Okay, so now let's take an example of a study. Evaluation of efficacy and safety of gabapentin versus duloxetine. These are 2 drugs which are used for painful diabetic neuropathy. Okay, so they've said at a tertiary care hospital, a randomized controlled trial. Okay, this is a trial. We want to study what is the effect and safety of gabapentin versus duloxetine. Okay, so let's see how they have written the need. In the need, you are going to write it as what is diabetic neuropathy? It's a common microvascular complication. Okay, and how it starts, right? And then they're going to tell you that there are 26% of these diabetic patients who can easily come up with diabetic neuropathy problems. And further, the rising prevalence is anticipated to increase the burden of diabetic neuropathic pain. Okay, so you're going to define what is diabetic neuropathy and maybe very few symptoms, how it starts, and what the patient might complain about. And then about 26% of these patients can become, if you want to say globally how many people at present are suffering from neuropathic pain, that also can be added. And then you please note down how do we write the references. Okay, it is a superscript. You are going to write 1 and 2, and then if you need 3 and 4, you just go ahead and write those numbers. It should always be a superscript, okay, at the end of the sentence. Right, so that is the first paragraph, in which you are going to say what is this clinical condition and what is the burden of the disease. Okay, so then what is the current knowledge of it? What do we already know about management of diabetic? What do we already know about diabetic neuropathy? Okay, so that is, there are 2 drugs, that is gabapentin is licensed for the treatment of neuropathic pain, and there is quite a lot of evidence for treating it, and it also comes up in a lot of guidelines like NICE guidelines of UK, etc. Then duloxetine is also an antidepressant, but it is recently added for the treatment of diabetic neuropathy. And again, look at the references, it comes as superscript. Okay, so now here we are saying that there are 2 drugs which are already known to us, which are being used for the treatment of diabetic neuropathy. So that's the current knowledge. Now we are going to come with what is the unanswered question. So what is the research question which we are going to drop because of the gap in the knowledge. That is about 12% of the patients with gabapentin are usually not compliant. They are not adherent because of the adverse effects and cost. So duloxetine could be a very effective alternative available to for the treatment of diabetic neuropathy, because it is not giving us so many adverse effects and costs. Hence the present study is taken to compare the efficacy and safety of gabapentin and duloxetine. So here where is your justification comes. So here I said about 12% of gabapentin patients are non-adherent because they may feel dizzy and drowsy and all that, and some people feel that it is very costly. So there is a need for an other cost-effective alternative to treat in diabetic neuropathy. So duloxetine could be that drug. So I want to compare a head-to-head comparison of gabapentin versus duloxetine. And that's why I have taken this present study. I think all of you understood by now. This is the justification in the third paragraph, which will be missing in most of your synopsis. Without this, your need is not complete and nobody will really understand why you want to do the study. Okay. So going back again, first paragraph, you are going to tell us the disease burden, and second paragraph, you're going to tell us what do we already know, the current knowledge about the disease. And then in the third paragraph, you are going to tell us where is the lacuna in the knowledge, which is the unanswered question, because of which you have taken up the study. Okay, so I repeat again, the justification paragraph is never complete in most of your synopsis. And again, we will ask you to go back and write the justification and come back for the next review. So please don't do that. Write your justification properly. Okay, so justification could be like there are no head-to-head comparisons. These studies are never done in Indian population. Okay, and this subset of patients were never considered for any study. Okay, so things like that you can write in your need for the study. So this is the first section of your synopsis and it has to be really correct. Okay, so which is the next section? 6.2 is your review of literature. Very important here. I think all of you know what is review of literature. You need to have at least 10 or 12 full articles with you to write review of literature, and you all have to read it completely, not the abstract. You are going to read completely. And what do you get out of it? You will understand, okay, how others have done their studies, and you can draw most of your methodology from previous articles. And it is very, very important to get sample size from the previous article. So your review of literature is very, very important. Okay, and then as I told you, 10 or 12 articles are required to write review of literature, but we don't want you to cut, copy, paste it. It amounts to plagiarism. I'm going to tell you in the next slide what amounts to plagiarism. And then how here actually you don't have any word limit, but because if you keep writing, I think the document becomes bigger and bigger and there'll be a huge problem in uploading. So we always advise you to keep it to around 350 to 400 words. Don't cross 400 words, and write about 4 to 5, max 4 paragraphs, and keep 5 to 6 references. Okay, in review of literature, we expect you to take at least 2 standard textbook references. Okay, standard textbook references. Okay, not smaller books, but standard 2 textbook references, and then at least 4 or 5 journal articles, and few should be Indian. It's not always foreign journals, but few should be Indian, and textbooks can be anything. It's okay. So, but 2 standard textbooks in your specialty, and then references from journals. Okay, so that is your review of literature. And again, how do we here? The most common mistake you do is how to write your references. Okay, so you say, for example, in need of this study, if you have used numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. Now, in your review of literature, it should start from 5, 6, 7, 8. But after 5, if you want to use the first reference, you can always use. After 5, you can re-quote the reference 1. Okay, but 5, 6, 7, 8 should be in an order. Don't write 8th reference after 5th reference, not writing 6th or 7th. And sometimes what we have seen is, not sometimes, most of the times, you normally copy from articles, and that article will have reference number 82, which will be featuring in your synopsis review of literature also. So you are not allowed to write 82 and 102 and copy paste the same thing. Please check your numbers properly, and as much as possible include some textbooks. Okay, so now let's see how you have to write your review of literature. Before that, I think this table, most of you might have seen, it is from that Swayam portal, which you are doing research methodology I've taken from. So if you have around 10 articles, what you're going to write, you're going to make a table like this, which is very, very useful when you are going to write your dissertation also. So these columns you do, and then you start writing your citation. What is the design of the study? What's the objective of the study? Who were the study population, sample size, and what were the outcomes and results, and what is the author's conclusion. But at the end, you please add one more column as what is your remark about the study. Okay, so if your table is complete, then it's very, very easy for you to write your review of literature. So make it a habit to do the table. So you will know the significance of the table when you are writing your dissertation. Okay, so please look at this table. This is from your Swayam portal only. Okay, this is a very, very good table and very easy to do. And then it gives you a lot of, it eases the whole process of writing review of literature for your dissertation. Okay, so each one I'll tell you. Before that, I think I just want to tell you about plagiarism. See, the Rajiv Gandhi University has bought a plagiarism software. All your dissertations and synopsis will go through the plagiarism software, and it gives out a certificate. Okay, so in that certificate, it's going to tell us if it is about 30, 40% or 50%. I think below 20%, nobody is going to accept your synopsis or dissertation. Okay, all this while they were asking us to do, but I think now they have their own software through which all the synopsis will go through. Okay, we don't want your synopsis or dissertation to be rejected just because of plagiarism. Okay, I think all of you understand what is plagiarism. It is when you copy from the original articles and without even giving the credit to the authors. There are a lot of types of plagiarism. One is plagiarism of ideas. This to some extent is okay. You go to a conference and then you get some ideas, and then you come back and do the same, use the same idea and develop your study. So ideally what you do, idea may be there, but you will come back and develop something's out, different from the original idea. You just cannot steal somebody's idea and make it your own. But it's very difficult to identify this plagiarism of ideas. Then plagiarism of text, most commonly seen in all your synopsises. You will just copy paste directly from another article and you will not even give the credit to that author. Okay, but the next question is, can I just copy and say that I copied from that article? Even that is plagiarism. Please don't do that. Okay, you cannot just copy from an article and at the end give a reference saying that I picked it up from this article. Okay, that is also plagiarism. So then what should we do? What we are going to do is we are going to read the article properly and write it in our own language. Okay, so don't just change a little bit of grammar here and there. Even that will be caught by the plagiarism software. It's very easy. Don't get into the habit of copying. You just have to read the article and write in very, very simple English. And then you make sure that you're not changing the results of the original paper. Okay, so plagiarism of text is direct plagiarism, which we see in most of your synopsis and dissertation. Okay, so, and some of you feel that if I copy from an article and save and write the reference and say from where I have copied, then it doesn't amount for plagiarism. It's very, very wrong. Even that is plagiarism. Please don't do copy paste also, and write in your own language. Okay, next is self-plagiarism. This may not be applicable to you. This says that if I copy from my own paper, okay, so I have written 50 articles and I copy always from my own articles, even that is called plagiarism. Self-plagiarism is also not allowed. And then collusion is when I ask someone else to write it and I put my name to it, you ask some agency to write and then I put my name as first author. That's also considered as plagiarism. And the next one is patch writing. I think most of you do this. Okay, there are only two types which normally we see in your synopsis and dissertation. One is plagiarism of text. You just copy everything from original articles, or patch writing. What you feel is, if I copy two sentences, I have 10 articles. If I copy two sentences from 10 articles and then make it my own paragraph, then nobody will catch it. Your every sentence and every word will be caught by the plagiarism software. Okay, so don't do patch writing also. You cannot copy two sentences from 10 different articles and make a paragraph out of it. But we see this also very, very commonly in your dissertation and in your synopsis. Okay, so please don't do that. And it's a shame if it comes back rejected just because of plagiarism. Let's not do it. Don't do plagiarism. It's very easy for you to read and understand. You just have to spend some time, read, understand, and then write it in your own language. Make sure you're not changing the results of the original article. Okay, and then copying from original article and saying that I copied from this article, also even that amounts to plagiarism. Don't do that. Write it in your own language the way you have understood it. Okay, I think all of you understood this much. Now let's go and let's understand how to write review of literature. So what do we normally see in your synopsis is, you will see the abstract. You may have 10 or 12 articles with you. You will read only the abstract, and your review of literature is a cut, copy, paste of the conclusion part of the abstract. Okay, so we do not understand anything out of a conclusion part of some article. You're not supposed to write like that. Your review of literature has to contain a lot of details. Okay, so I've given you just one paragraph of how to write your review of literature, starting with see, this is a placebo controlled study. I have written the study design first by Conja et al. It is the first author. Then you can write et al if it has more authors. N is equal to 236. That's the sample size. Where was the study conducted? In Italy. Okay, so I've told you the design. I have told you about the first author. I've given you the sample size and the place of the study, and reported that gabapentin produced statistically significant reduction in pain as measured by VAS. Okay, so I have told you what is my assessment tool here. Okay, in 8 weeks, what is the study period, and as compared to placebo. So I have already told you I'm comparing gabapentin against placebo among patients with diabetic neuropathy, and the number needed to treat is for 50% of pain relief for gabapentin was 3.7. That means you have given what are the comparators, gabapentin and placebo, and then you have given out the result. What is the result? The number needed to treat is 3.7. Okay, so again, going back, I've given you the study design, the study author, the first author, sample size, place of the study, what are my comparators, what is my assessment tool, who is my study population, peripheral neuropathy is my study population, what is the result. Okay, 3.7 was the number needed to treat, and then I'm going to give the reference as 11. Okay, all this information should be there in your review of literature paragraph for each study. Okay, for each study. So if you go back to that table which I showed you, which I copied from Swayam, okay, that contains all the information. Okay, once you have filled all this, you just have to make a paragraph out of it. That's all. So that is where your table comes in very handy. So get into the habit of doing the table. It's very easy, not only now, even for your dissertation. Okay, so that doesn't end there. Then we have to write my own remark of the study. So now I know that this person has done and given me this result, but what is my review? Okay, so that is, I feel that this is a single centered study, so the results are not generalizable. Okay, so it's a very single centered study, and the measurement they have used is subjective. Okay, whenever you make it, whenever you want to give out some good studies, it has to be both objective and subjective way of measuring your measuring the parameter. So I feel the remark of this study is that it is a single centered study, so the results are not generalizable, and the assessment used is always is only subjective, that is VAS scale. So what I want all of you to understand is, I think in your checklist I have given you everything. You have to write all the details in this paragraph, and at the end you are going to write your remark about the study, okay, in one line remark about the study. So like this you are going to quote about 4 or 5 references, and please make sure they are all in last 5 years. Don't take 20-year-old articles and all that. So make sure that you have 5 articles, I mean 5 years, last 5 years articles, and a good mix of foreign journals and Indian studies also. Indian studies are also very important. And when you are selecting some articles, you please look at the impact factor of the journal and all that, and pick it up from very good journals. Okay. So because in those journals, usually their methodologies and everything will be correct. Okay. So if you are picking up some articles, look at the impact factor of the journal and pick it up from good journals. I think all of you understood this much, right? So this is what your review of literature paragraph should contain, and please don't copy paste from the abstracts. Okay, so nobody can understand the conclusion, because we will not understand what is the design of the study and what was the assessment tool or outcome measures. Nothing we understand if you paste only the conclusion from all the studies. So if you please make sure that your review of literature contains all these parameters. Okay, so that is your review of literature. And what are the major issues we see when we are correcting your review of literature is the reference numbers. Okay, so please make sure they are in continuity with need for the study, and then always the lower numbers can repeat. As I told you, after 1, 2, 3, 4 in your need, your review starts with 5th reference. After 5th, you can always quote 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you want. Okay, after 5, the 6th reference only should come, then 7th and 8th. After 7th, you want to go back and use your second reference again, go ahead and use. That is right. The lower numbers can repeat, but let it be in an order. Okay, so please look at the reference numbers in your review of literature and don't go beyond 400 words. And then please don't pick up references from websites and newspaper articles. They are allowed for dissertation. For synopsis, we don't advise you to pick it up from newspaper articles or just websites. But sometimes the guide, there could be some WHO guidelines on all that, which you have to pick up from a website only. In those times, it should be okay, but preferably pick it up from textbooks or very good journals with good impact factor. Okay, so that finishes your review of literature. And I think the sources you already know, pick it up from journals, textbooks, and all that. Now coming to the most important part of your synopsis, that's the objective of your study. And then 90% of you will write the wrong objectives. Though you understand that you have to do that in your writing, most of you go wrong in writing your objectives. Okay, why is the objective very important? Because it determines your methodology, your design of the study. Once your objective is wrong, then your design of the study is wrong, and if they don't match, whatever result you give out is also wrong. Okay, and these synopses and dissertations normally come back or rejected because of this, because objective and design doesn't match. Okay, so most of the time your synopsis is rejected just because your objective and your study design do not match. Okay, so please take a lot of time in writing your objectives, read a lot of articles, see how they have written their objectives, and then you write your objective. And then don't write more than 2 objectives. We want only 2 objectives. You need not have to write primary and secondary. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Write only 1 and 2. Okay, so write first objective, then you write your second objective. Okay, so don't go beyond 2 objectives. It's very difficult for you to do it because the time given to you is very short time, right? Now I think all of you know this, you all have done your research methodology Swayam assignment. So all of you know it should be very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. In that, I put measurable in red one because I want all of you to read that properly. All your objectives should be measurable. That is where all of you go wrong. When you write your objective, then you go back and think, is it measurable? Okay, when if it satisfies that, then your objectives will be right. Now there are few parts in your objective which are very, very important. There's an action verb. This verb is where most of you go wrong. I want you to write down, if you have your checklist with you, please use the terms that you want to evaluate, or if it is some investigation, I want to estimate, or you are comparing two groups, then you are going to say, I'm going to compare or to measure, to analyze also can be written. But what is not allowed is, I want to know, okay? I want to know. Know is not something which can be measured. How do I know that you know? Okay, so things like that. So please don't say, I want to study something, I want to describe something, then I want to know whether this treatment works or not. Okay, so these verbs are not to be used at all. And repeatedly we tell you, and you come up with such kind of words only. So please don't write it. I have given you examples. You say, I'm going to analyze, or I'm going to evaluate, I'm going to estimate, or I'm going to compare. Okay, these are the words which should come out in your objectives. Okay, so please don't use these wrong words and make the whole objective wrong. Okay, so most commonly you write, I want to know or I want to study. So both the words should not be used in your objectives. Okay, so the first objective has three parts. One is the action verb, which is very, very important, where most of you go wrong. So please keep this in your mind and write your verbs properly. Next is the content, what you are going to measure, and what is the condition. Okay, as we told you, diabetic neuropathy. What was the measurement? I want to compare two drugs. And then what is my action verb? I want to compare. I want to compare two drugs. The content is two drugs, the pain measurement, and condition is diabetic peripheral neuropathy. So it's very easy to write your objective if you get your verb properly. And I'm repeating again and again, please write the right verbs. Okay, please don't say, I want to know, I want to study, I want to describe. Okay, please don't do that. Now coming to how a proper objective is written, again going back to the same example, here we have written, want to compare the efficacy of gabapentin versus pregabalin in patients with painful diabetic peripheral neuropathy. Okay, so the verb is here compare, because I have two groups and I want to compare, and the study population is painful diabetic peripheral neuropathy. Okay, and then some people want to describe how we are going to measure that efficacy. So they will say efficacy is measured by reduction in severity of pain by using VAS scale. Okay, 0 is no pain and 10 is worst possible pain. You have the freedom of writing your assessment tool right next to your objective, or there is another section if you go through your checklist where you can write your assessment tool. If you write your objective as, I want to compare the efficacy of gabapentin versus pregabalin in diabetic neuropathy, it is enough. Your objective is right. So let's go through some of the examples what your friends had written. Okay, so the objective was to determine the role played by HbA1c in causing glaucoma. Okay, so if you think back, definitely this is not measurable. Okay, so what is the role played and all that? And is it good role or bad role? How are we going to measure that? Okay, so it's very difficult for us to measure if you give an objective like this. So instead, what are we going to write? We're going to say, I want to evaluate the association of glycemic control as a risk factor for glaucoma. Okay, so you want to see whether glycemic control plays a role in development of glaucoma or not. But you are going to write your objective properly. You are not going to say this role played, we see in about 100 synopses. Please don't write that word. Okay, next is very simple descriptive study. You want to clinically study various types of epilepsy in elderly. Okay, so this again clinically study. When you write your objective, you should be able to picture the table in which you are going to write your results. Okay, so if you say I'm going to clinically study, what are you going to study and how are you going to put it in a table form? Okay, so it's very difficult and it is not very specific also, and it's not 100% measurable. So what are we going to say? We are going to say, right, the objective as to analyze the demographics, clinical spectrum and management of epilepsy among elderly patients. Now you know that I'm going to make a table out of demographics. I'm going to write a table about clinical spectrum, how, and I'm going to make a table about the management of epilepsy among elderly patients. A very simple descriptive study. But when you write an objective like this, clinically study various types of epilepsy, definitely it is going to come back rejected, because your objective is not telling me the design of the study. Okay, so this kind of objectives definitely will come back with a comment. So please take good care when you are writing your objective. Okay, your objective determines your design and thereby your results. So the most important part of your synopsis is your objective. Then one more, which your friend had written, to prove that CPNAT greatly reduces time in diagnosis of TB. Okay, again, to prove that and greatly reduces, all these are the words which should never come out in your objective. It is a scientific document which we are writing. It is not simple English essay. Okay, so it's a very scientific document, so don't write such things. Instead, we are going to say to evaluate the time required. So what we are going to measure, I'm going to measure the time required for diagnosis of TB using CBNAT as compared to conventional methods. Then in your methods, you are going to tell me what are all the conventional methods against which you are going to compare your CBNAT with. Okay, so please don't use the word I want to prove. We are not proving anything here, and greatly reduces and such kind of words should never be written. And again, word to surgery and orthopedics who are going to compare two different techniques of surgery and all that. So when you are writing that I'm going to compare two different techniques of surgery, in terms of what you are going to compare, you please write that. Okay, so in terms of, it could be length of hospital stay or complications or wound healing, etc. I mean, it can be OT time and things like that, but in terms of what you are going to compare should also be written. So you are going to compare two different techniques of surgery, then you are going to tell me in terms of what you are going to write. Okay, so objective, very very important are these words. Please don't say I want to know and I want to describe and I want to study and things like that. Please write your work. You can use the word evaluate and estimate. If it is simple blood investigation, you say I want to estimate this. Okay, so that is quite good. So take lot of care in writing your objectives. And then one more thing, caution is that please, when you're using the word incidence and prevalence, you have to be very careful. Prevalence is used only by community medicine people because they do the field study. We see a lot of synopsis with these words, incidence and prevalence. Prevalence is out of the question. And then even incidence also, because what is the denominator for these ratios? It is population at risk. So it is very difficult for us to define the denominator if we use the word incidence and prevalence. So my advice is you please use the word frequency. Okay, so frequency is a very simple word and then very easy for you to calculate. But if you keep using the word incidence and prevalence, we cannot define the denominator and we cannot define the population at risk. It becomes very difficult. But in case if you want to use it, then in the review committee, you have to explain to us how you are going to calculate that. Okay, that is one thing most of you go wrong. Okay,
and then they cannot either incidence and to study the incidence or study the prevalence.
Yeah. So then another very common mistake, general medicine PGs, please pay attention, and PEDS PGs also, please, association and correlation. We see so much of correlation. You want to correlate anything with everything. So please don't do that. And how you use these words, correlation and association, are very, very important. So correlation, when I'm using the word correlation, I want to correlate two things. Those two things should be continuous variables. Like if I think that as the height increases, weight increases. Okay, those two are numbers. So I can correlate. So there should be two numbers. Or as potassium goes high, something, I mean, the length of hospital stay also increases. Maybe something like that. So the two numbers, if you are going to compare, then you can use the word correlation. For all the rest of it, the word is association. Okay, so don't get confused with two words, correlation and association. And the statistics for correlation is different, the statistics for association is also different. So please pay attention to this. Slide is very, very important, where most of the mistakes will come out. Incidence and prevalence is better to avoid, but if you really want to use it, like you can use some point prevalence or period prevalence and all that, but there you have to put the formula and explain to us how you are going to calculate. But rather, the most easier term to be used is frequency. Okay, and then again, correlation and association, please use the words properly, because correlation should be used for continuous variables only, and the rest of it you can always say you can use the word association. And when you're using the word correlation and association, please pay attention to statistical tests, statistical analysis, which we are going to do. Okay, now sorry, I'm not going to allow any questions till the end. At the end, I think we will go ahead and answer your questions. Okay, 1 second. I think now Rangnath sir will just take over. We will have the other parts, materials and methods. There's a lot to discuss after Dr. Rangnath finishes his about 10 or 15 minute session. Please be there.
Good afternoon, friends. Thank you, Dr. Sushma. Madam is explaining this. What is the procedure for regarding Rajiv Gandhi thesis, how to write the synopsis, and what is the protocol, all those things. I'll just brief regarding 10-15 minutes regarding once you write your thesis, maybe the madam will, after 10 minutes, again, Madam Sushma will continue with this, the further methodology and review literature, all those things, madam will continue. I'll just take 10-15 minutes break. In this 15 minutes, what I will say is, once you submit your synopsis to the Rajiv Gandhi University as a thesis, by the end of your second, 2.5 year or third year, your thesis will be in the Rajiv Gandhi University 6 months before examination. During that time, two things is important. One is, anyway, you are submitting the soft copy. This batch, 2020 batch, you have to, along with your thesis, you have to give, one is your the pro forma of this, your empty pro forma, the next to the ethical committee report, then also additionally about the consent report, and also one more is what is called as, this time they audit, what is called as the plagiarism protected certificate, something like this. So this is a little bit newer aspect. I'll just sensitize this. What is this the plagiarism certificate? Rajiv Gandhi University has made uniformly all the RGHS affiliated postgraduates under Rajiv Gandhi. They has to, this batch from 2014 2020 batch, you will be submitting your thesis in 2020 23, yeah? March 23. You will be submitting your thesis in March 23. So that time your thesis should contain a 1 page of plagiarism certificate. What is that? That will show you in a demo as a 2 minutes. Then you can learn much better. I'll just quickly go through it. There are about 10 slides. So in the thesis, all your thesis, maybe in Bangalore Medical College, 250 students. Like this in entire Karnataka, starting from anatomy to anesthesia, there are about 2,000, believe it, 2,000 postgraduates in Karnataka. So in these 2,000 under jumbling, maybe the BMC PG thesis will go to the Ramaya College or for JJM, or maybe about Bidar, Gulbarga, something like this. So on jumble, so any faculty in the respective, maybe medicine, surgery, or anatomy, whatever it may be, that PG teacher is going to evaluate your thesis. So what you're seeing, this is the screen. The most of your thesis will be evaluated online. I'll just tell you how your thesis will be evaluated 3 years down the line. So this is the thesis evaluation. A copy will come to me like this in the Rajiv Gandhi format. So there is a user's name, password. Once you open this, I'll get a what all the formats. So Rajiv Gandhi has made a standard format. Your thesis will be evaluated in the following edits, like abstract, introduction, all those things. So I will take one of those, maybe about whether your thesis is adequate or inadequate based on whether your thesis abstract, whether it is a background, objective, methodology. This is the format they suppose. If it is not there, then the reviewer will say it is not adequate or review something like this. Second one is introduction. The introduction will be, it should be a structured summary of clinical trials and what is the purpose, the specific objectives, whether they have to mention this, what is the current lacuna in the current knowledge. These are the points, the guidelines given. So your introduction or need of the study should tell about all these things. So if it is there, then the evaluator will look into this. Yes, it influences all the things. Yeah, it is adequate. So careful while writing the thesis. In the introduction part, we check all these aspects. In the objective, I think Madam Dr. Sushma told you your objective should be smart. Like what is that? Madam will explain you. If it is there, then adequate. Otherwise, if it is a not included, not relevant, so they may ask you, there'll be a problem. Review literature also, Madam is going to tell you regarding how many review literature should be there. In the most of them should be as much as possible, the recent one, and about at least 30 to 40 reference. Don't say, sir, my topic is a very newest one. I did not get the reference. It's your headache. Who told you to get this such irrelevant topic? So they say the competency and relevancy of the study is the most important. Don't say, sir, it's a very innovative study. Nobody has done in this world. Nothing is new in this world. Everybody like you, more than 50,000 doctors are postgraduate running in this entire country or in this. So they might have done one or other way. Don't say, I didn't get the review literature. You don't know how to search the review literature. So this is important. So based on that, we say there is a relevant review literature is adequate or not. Otherwise, I would say your review literature is not adequate. Your thesis will be rejected. Methodology. Your methodology should be the type of study, the ethical committee clearance is there or not, whether you've taken a consent, whether the duration of study is mentioned, sample size is calculated, mentioned. All these things is our other colleague will, she's going to explain you properly. So based on this, whether it is adequate or not, we'll just tick this. Sample size also, whether what sample size, how did you calculate, how did you arrive to that maybe 10, 20, 30, so that you have to mention, you have to justify this, and based on that, we say adequate or not. Results also, something like this. We consider all those things, the 1, 2, 3, 4 points, and we say there is your thesis is adequate or not. This is how the evaluation sheet by the Rajiv Gandhi University. Discussion also, we should discuss your discussion point in the respective thesis topic, whether it's relevant, whether the mention, the statement, limitation, interpretation, summary, all these things are there or not. We look all those components and we say your thesis is adequate or inadequate. This is uniform from anatomy to anesthesia. All the postgraduate teachers, online dissertation evaluation, we will be doing the same. This is same for all the subjects. It may be neurology, nephrology, whatever it may be. It's same. Conclusion summary also should be considered, and based on that, we conclude this. It also contains the consent form, ethical clearance, and also I said the from this time onwards, what is called as plagiarism, anti-plagiarism certificate. So later you can put your photos or master table or something like this. So this is what I'm just telling. So many medical colleges have purchased the different one, but Rajiv Gandhi suggested that because now the Rajiv Vice Chancellor has said this is a better one for the present knowledge. So they have suggested this one. Just PGs, just remember, still you have a lot of time. There is something called as software. You have to subject it your thesis maybe about 100 or 200 pages thesis to this software, and by the end of things, that will give a one-page report whether it's satisfactory or not satisfactory. Based on that, your thesis will be accepted or comments that will be there. I'll just tell you these are the things. So we know this what is plagiarism. That this slide I'm going to share it anyway. You will come to know what is that. So of course, Synopsys is a part of this PG training. While doing this, we may just get some information from the earlier researcher what they have done on the respective topic. But in that time, maybe the what was his reference or other things might have copied other things. It looks like either it is a plagiarism or not. So in this time, what it accounts for plagiarism, what is the allowable error as per ICMR or other research, and our Rajiv Gandhi University. We are working under Rajiv Gandhi University. So what Rajiv Gandhi University says, it is as per with any other apex body, standard apex body. So what is that? All those things. This slide will share with you, so you can go through this. And different types of plagiarism, all those things we know, and the consequence that you know this. And they will tell about whether your research article, maybe coming days, even it will come to the article also. Many journals, many journals in India, because now you are a postgraduate. 3 years down the line, you will become an assistant professor SR. When you go for this competition for the selection post, they will ask you for the research publication. Then you have to do your research, means public paper publication. Then they will ask you whether you've taken the ethical committee concern, whether your article has run through this plagiarism. So then they will check it, and if it is so, then you will be rejected. So please be aware of all those things. This is the starting point. That's I'm just telling. So whether your research article having any copied from other things. So it is showing 53%. Just look at here. 53% is not a acceptable form. There is a criteria. They will tell you later. In the here you can see this. Yes, sir. Yes for satisfactory. Then good, satisfactory, log out, something like this. Thus you can go through this later. So that will self-explanatory. That will tell you later. This how your article, once it is got through this, it will show like a red, blue, green, like this software. There are worldwide, there are so many softwares are there, but Rajiv Gandhi is suggesting for us this is the one, and that will show the different what is it? Different sources. They'll give where all the sources we have copied and all those things. That is high content in that. How much you have copied? I said this earlier topic is 53% is similarity. That is not acceptable. 10 to 15% is acceptable. Maybe if you go for ICMR, it is say 10%. Maybe we have given somewhat because it's a new beginning. So we expect more and more quality and good work. So that's why maybe the margin might have given higher from the Rajiv Gandhi. Otherwise, that also should be go with the 10% as acceptable. But now it is up to 15%. That is what the authority says. Your article will be something like this. Next, I'll just 2-3 minutes I'll give regarding what is this drill bit and how to go subject all other things. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡಿ, ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡಿ, ನಂದೇ ಮೇಲ್ ಐಡಿ ಹಾಕಿ ನೀವು ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
Good morning, friends. Myself, Jayanna Belwadi. I am from Drillbit Anti-Plagiarism Software Company. I will run through the Drillbit plagiarism software. How to?
5 to 10 minutes. Because there are doctors that are busy.
Yes, yes. So I will run through the Drillbit plagiarism software. How to check the plagiarism report. This is our website, drillbitplagiarism.com. We have given access to the Rajiv Gandhi University as well as college. You can get a report from the college or from the university, or even you can reach us Drillbit also. We also support offline. And this is a login page. You have to enter user ID and password. So this is our home page. You can see this is a home page. Here the option is to create a folder to manage the files. Under the folders, you can submit the documents. Already there are 2 folders you can see here.
One more article.
I'll create one more folder. I'll give medical one. Medical. I'll give the validity of the folder. Like you will take a project for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. So you can write the validity of that. And as per the policy of the university, there are option to exclude references and bibliography. For example, when you're writing thesis or article, if you're copying any content from published work, you need to give a reference. If you give the reference to the original author, if you give the credits to the original author, then it won't consider plagiarism. So while writing the paper, please ensure whenever you copy any sentence, paragraph, you should give the credits to the original author. And we can exclude the reference. If you're giving the credits to the original author and writing the references, you can exclude the references. And you should write the copied content. If you're copying any content from the published work, you have to write within the quotation mark and give the proper references. Then it will be excluded from the plagiarism check. And this is a small source like thesis and dissertations. There are 2 concepts of finding a plagiarism. One is a 5 similarity words, and one more is a 14 similarity words. So for thesis and dissertations, you can go for 14 similarity words, and for research articles, the international standard is a 5 similarity words. All the major publishers accept the 5 similarity words reports. So there are options to exclude and include sources. For example, when you're writing a thesis, you may take your own content which is published in the research article in your thesis. So software will identify your own published content. So in that case, you can exclude your own work. So now we'll submit the folder. So now you can see here the folder has been created here, medical. Then we'll choose the folder. Okay. So here you can see the options to upload the document. We support the plagiarism software in regional languages also. If anyone studying Hindi or other languages, you can go for non-English. And if you want to submit English document, go to upload and the single submissions. We'll take your author name.
Sushma.
Title, I'll give demo. And the document type, I will choose here thesis, dissertations, article. So you can choose the document type and choose the file from your desktop or anywhere you had saved it. And here you can see simple article. Okay. So now I attach the document, I'll submit. You can submit the Word document, PDF, or any document. No restriction on the file formats.
Even you can submit the PDF also.
PDF, Excel sheet, you can submit it. So now you can see here, we have submitted the document for plagiarism check. You will see the author name, paper title, and original file name, which you have attached it, and what is the language of the document. So paper ID is unique. If you want to track of this paper, if you have any concern regarding paper, you can refer to Drillbit with a paper ID. We will help you to find this paper and submitted date and time. And this now it is running and checking the plagiarism. It will compare with a larger database. Larger database in the sense there are 3 types of content. One is the internet sources. A lot of web pages are there, around 70 plus billions of web pages, and the publishers and journals content. If you copy anything from publishers and journals content like articles and ebooks, we will find the plagiarism. One more is the student document. For example, if you are copying from any senior students or the different university students, we detect the plagiarism from them as well. So there are no chances to copy from internet sources, published articles, ebooks and journals, and then student assignments from your senior students. So it is the ethical integrity of the students or the university. So ensure that you write your own documents, theses or dissertations.
Mr. Jaina, then how much time an article can take to check the similarity? If I submit privately, how much the charges?
Like if you want to check outside the university, we are charging 300 rupees for article and 500 rupees for thesis and dissertations.
It depends on page wise or number of articles.
It is
my dissertation is 150 pages.
Yeah, it
is 10 pages.
Article is for 300 rupees. It is 10 to 20 pages. And for, thesis and dissertation up to 200 pages is 500 rupees. So if any students would like to check with us before submitting to university, or if you, when you're writing a chapter wise thesis also, you can get it chapter wise also, so that you ensure that there is no plagiarism.
How much time you require to run through this plagiarism?
Like minimum time is 3 to 5 minutes for one document. Like if it's 10 to 15 pages, maximum time is about 15 to 20 minutes. It depends on the number of documents and size of the document. So now you got the plagiarism. You can see here now 21% is the plagiarism. So you can see right side delete option and download option. Now I'll click on the similarity percentage. I think friends, you can all see the screen. I think they
Yeah,
have
yeah,
the top,
yes,
right? Okay.
Can you see?
Okay, fine.
Friends, now we see this article by Ranganath and Sushma. They are copied from the other articles. It is showing similarities 21%. So look at this now.
So now you can see here the document showing 21% plagiarism, and these are the sources, from which are the sources and what is the plagiarism percentage from each source, and direct link also. If you click on this link, it will take you through the original paper from where you have copied and how much content you have copied. And this is the part here. You can see that it will highlight in different colors. Each sources is identified in different colors, so easy for identification, rewrite. So how to reduce the percentage? That is the biggest challenge for students. The question is how to reduce the percentage. So it is easy. You need to see that the sources which are top plagiarism percentage. You take 4 or 5 sources on the top side, and you see the content, which is the highlighted content for the top 4 or 5 sources. Then you need to rewrite in your own words. You should use the alternative words, or you should rewrite in your own sentences. So then it will reduce the plagiarism percentage. And here we have option for download option, and you can QR code is there. You can scan from your mobile and download your plagiarism report. And these are some options are there.
Show the report how it comes at the end.
Yeah. So I'll download this report. So now the report has been downloaded in the PDF format. This is what you need to attach along with the thesis and dissertations or article when you're submitting. This entire screen sharing is not attaching. ಅದು ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Let's open ಆಯ್ತಲ್ಲ? Okay. Friends, you can see now this is the downloaded report, a PDF report. This is what you need to attach along with your thesis and dissertations. Here you can see that author name, title, submission paper ready, date and time, how many pages are there, how many words are there, and what is the similarity percentage, what is the unique content, how much content is matched from internet sources, how much content is matched from journals and publication sources, how much content under reference part. So if you're writing a references and quoted material, if you're writing within the quotation mark, that also will be highlighted. There is a limitation on the quoted works and the references also. And it will display the references and bibliography excluded or not, quotes and the small sources. And here you can see this is the report. 21% is the similarity percentage. How many sources are matched from this similarity? And what is the grade of this paper? You can see here A is 0 to 10 is a satisfactory. The content should be plagiarism percent should be less than 10%. This is what UGC and other bodies are approved. And B grade is 11 to 40. You need to rewrite it and resubmit it. 41 to 60 is the C grade, and above 60 is the unacceptable. They will reject the registration of the your program. So this is the similarities. Each sources, how much plagiarism percentage from which are the sources. And if you come down, you will see the content part, which content is highlighted in different sources. You need to rewrite to reduce the plagiarism percentage. Just you need to see the highlighted content. You can see that this is a major part is matched. You need to rewrite in your own words using alternate words or different words.
Yeah, that's all. Yes.
Okay, that's all about plagiarism report. If
So
any,
this one page, this is the one-page report you have
Yeah.
to submit with a authority signature.
yes. So this is the first 2 pages you need to submit along with your thesis and dissertations, even an article also. Thank you, friends. If any doubts, you can go to our website, drillbitplagiarism.com. If any doubts or any questions, you can write an email to us. Thank you so much.
Close. ಮುಗಿದಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್. Okay, friends, that was Mr. Jayana. He is one of the contact person for this drill bit. Rajiv Gandhi has a tie-up with this software. Till that Rajiv Gandhi says we have to continue. So this batch onwards, from this batch onwards, all the synopsis submitting students, they should be aware. So in the during thesis time, we have to attach this one-page report, and maybe in the near future, almost all the publications what you are going to do in the future, all those things they are going to, maybe this is maybe a drill bit, maybe there are so many other worldwide, so many other softwares are there of your choice, but you are in the under Rajiv Gandhi, you have to submit only in this format. Maybe once you grown out, then you can do the different, that is different issue. So this is what we wanted to say. Now over to Dr. Madam Sushma. Madam Sushma will continue with this, the research methodology component. So thank you. We noticed that there are about only 240 students. So many, still 280 postgraduates supposed to attend. That will be viewed very seriously. Other, the consequence is your synopsis will not be viewed unless you shown that as you have attended these online classes. So during our ethical committee, will ask you what was your mistake, or had I not told you in these things, then you will be in a difficult to explain. So I request all my young friends, please attend this online class. Be alert what, as a being a researcher, first year postgraduate, what I should do for the thesis synopsis, and listen to Madam Sushma. It's hardly about, she may take another 20-30 minutes. By 1 o'clock, this will be over. And the recorded version will be available online. Thank you. All the best.
Okay, sir.
ಹೇಳಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣನೇ ಬಂದರು 10 minutes ಇರೋದು.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. ಇವಾಗ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು
Okay, welcome again. Now we'll go through the next section. Keep your checklists again. The most important part, materials and methods. Okay, now starting from 7 is your materials and methods. 7.1 is your source of data. This is 7.1 is source of your data. 7.2 is method of collection of data. 7.3, does it require any investigation? And then 7.4 is ethics clearance being given to you, your study. Okay, now we have just 7.1, going back to 7.1, source of data. You just write OPD or IPD of which department and which hospital attached to Bangalore Medical College. That is enough. Okay, 7.2, actually we have, BMC has actually given you a lot of side headings under which you all have to write. Okay, so the most important part, study design. I have been telling you from the beginning that your objective and your design should match. Okay, so if you are saying I'm going to compare two things, then definitely you're going to say I'm going to do a randomized study. Okay, here what is the most common study designs we know? It is descriptive. You are going to just see how many patients of pneumonia come to medicine OPD in 6 months, and then how do we manage them and what is the outcome of it. Okay, you are just going to say percentages and finish it there. Okay, you're not going to compare or do any higher level of statistics. That's called a descriptive study. Please don't feel that descriptive study is something very low. It is not. Okay, it gives us a lot of information for policy makers and all that. So don't worry about the design. The descriptive is a good design to do, so don't worry about that. And then next, if you are going to compare something, then either you're going to do a cohort study or a case control or a cross-sectional study. I think all of you know what is a cross-sectional study. At one point, you're going to take the whole data and then later you are going to compare it. Okay, case control, you are going to select your cases and then match with the controls and do it. Cohort is you are going to take one bunch of people and then carry the investigation in a forward way. Okay, please, here what is the most common problem here is that you guys just write it as prospective or retrospective study. Okay, so that is not actually a design. Okay, so it is not a design, it is only a logistic way of doing your work, your design. Okay, so design has to be either descriptive or cohort, case control or cross-sectional, or if you are comparing groups, then it has to be a randomized study. Okay, apart from these words, please don't write anything else as prospective and retrospective. Okay, so that is just a logistic. It is not a study design. Next, coming to what is the study period. You can all of you can, okay, I'm very sorry here. It's not November 20. It is postponed, right, to February 21. So you write it as February 21 to 1.5 years. Okay, so that write it as May 21 to May 22. Okay, so you can write it as February 21 to May 22. All of you are going to write the same number there. Okay, next coming to place of the study would be either Vani Villas Hospital or Victoria Hospital, BMCR. Okay, next very, very important thing is your sample size. For here, you have to calculate it properly. In your, when you are writing your dissertation, there is one file which you have to create for sample size and upload it, where you cannot go wrong. Last year, the thesis has come back just because the sample size was not written properly. Okay, so some of your seniors may say just take 30. 30 is not a magic number. Please don't do that. And then you might say, my friend has taken 100. My original article, which I'm referring to, has taken 100. So I am also going to take 100. Those are all not the right way of calculating your sample size. So whenever we are asking you to write about sample size, there should be a formula. And please don't write 4pq by d square for all designs. It depends on your design. Okay, so formula should be written, and then consider the dropout rate of at least 10% or missing date of 10%. After that, you calculate the total sample size, and then for this formula, if you have to substitute some numbers. Some studies may require mean, some studies may require standard deviation, some studies may require proportion. So how do we get those numbers? What do we substitute in the formula? You may get from your reference. Okay, but some of you might say that I am not getting a proper reference for my study. At that time, what you're going to do, you're going to do a pilot study. You're going to do your study with at least 25 to 30 patients, and then you will get the mean and standard deviation, which you are going to put in the formula. Okay, so in your sample size section, we expect a proper formula which depends on your study design. I will, at the end, I will give you a reference article which gives you all the formulas. Okay, and then if you have some problems with that, we have Mr. Vishwanath, who is a statistician in P&SM department. You can come and ask him. Please don't come and ask him to calculate your sample size. It is your study, so you are going to go through all the articles and read everything and decide on your formula and substitute everything. He can only tell you based on how you explain to him whether you are right or wrong. Okay, so for 300 people, he cannot calculate sample size and read 10 articles for each. So it is your job to do it. Only when you are stuck somewhere or you have a lot of doubts, then you can just come and ask him. Okay, so the statistician, Mr. Vishwanath, who is in P&SM department. Okay, so check your, write your formulas properly, then check for the dropout rate, and then write the total sample size. And then here you have to give a reference from where you have picked up the numbers. Okay, so study design, very, very important. Please don't write prospective, retrospective, etc., etc. I have given you what you need to write for your study design. This is again from your Swayam. Okay, I think all of you know this. See, cohort studies, I think you all of you know, you are going to select one cohort of patients, which will also have both exposed and unexposed group. Then your inquiry is always in a forward direction. Some people come with outcome, some without outcome, then you are going to compare them. Here, most important if you're doing a cohort study is that you are going to calculate a relative risk for it. Okay, please just don't compare two groups with paired t-test and all that. Your statistical analysis, what you write in your synopsis, should again match with your design, or again it will be rejected. Just don't use paired and unpaired t-test for everything. Okay, so those statistics and statistical tests you decide, and you please check with the statistician. It may be BMC or it can be any other statistician, you know, whether it is right. Don't write cohort studies and case control studies and do only t-tests. Okay, now the case control studies, we always go in the reverse direction. So once you have a case, most of you do case control studies in BMC, I know. So once we have a case, what are we going to do? We are going to select a control. So don't ever say, you know, healthy controls and then take some adults as controls. This is where you all go wrong. Whenever you take a case, he's a 60-year-old person with diabetes who's developed cirrhosis of liver. Okay, say for example like that. You cannot take a 20-year-old person who has not developed cirrhosis of liver as your control for the case. Every case has to be matched with the control. Okay, so your again control should be 60-year-old and with diabetes only. But the only problem here is your case has developed cirrhosis of liver, but your control hasn't developed. So that should be the only difference here, because here in case the outcome has happened, in controls the outcome has not happened. Okay, so the case control study, always you take healthy controls, some 20 or 25 adults, and then you say we have matched everything. So please don't do that. It is not only age and gender matching. You have to match with literally all the comorbidities, and sometimes even geographical location of the patient may also have to be matched. Okay, so case control studies, those who are planning on taking healthy controls, please make sure you do a case to case matching. It is not 20 cases you take at one time and just go and take 20 controls at one time. It is case to case matching. Please remember that. And whenever you're doing a case control study, your odds ratio is very, very important. You have to calculate your odds ratio. And once your controls are not matched, your odds ratio is going to go out of the roofs and your whole result will be wrong. So your matching, each case should be matched with a control, and then in your statistical analysis you are going to calculate odds ratio, okay, which is very, very important. And then those who are going randomized study, sorry, here it's not randomized control trial, it is randomized study. Don't say the word trial in your synopsis, say randomized study. Whoever, especially anesthesia PGs, I think all of you do a lot of randomized studies with blinding. In your synopsis, we want you to write the whole randomization procedure. I think randomization.com will give you the randomization for all your study samples. And then how we are going to do allocation concealment, saying that how do you decide which patient goes to which group, and that should be concealed. Okay, the principal investigator should not do that. So in your synopsis, in the methodology section, if you are doing a randomized study, we want a paragraph or a line on how do you randomize, how do you do allocation concealment, and how do you do blinding. Okay, these three things are very important if you are doing a randomized study, and most of the time it will be missing. Please make sure that you write these things if you are doing a double blinding or triple blinding, single blinded. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to just give you some examples. I think that should be okay. Okay, now here, please, all of you, if you have your checklist with you, please write down this. If you are doing any observational studies like cohort or case control studies or cross-sectional studies, type the STROBE checklist in your Google. It is a checklist which is followed by all the journals now. So STROBE checklist will give you around 20 to 25 questions, and see if you have answered all those questions in your synopsis. Then your synopsis is definitely right. If you are doing a comparative study, if you have two groups and you have randomized and doing a comparative study, please type consort checklist and get the questions. And whenever you are doing your journal club in future, if you have taken an observational study, again, see whether your journal article satisfies the STROBE checklist. So these checklists, as postgraduates, all of you should know, not only for the synopsis and dissertation, even for your journal clubs. So please download STROBE and consort checklist based on how which study design you are doing for your synopsis. So most of the time, if you're doing a prevalence or a disease burden or frequency, you go ahead and do cross-sectional studies. Cross-sectional studies are quite easy, but if you are doing a cohort and a follow-up and all that, see, please keep the whole COVID situation in your mind and take up studies for which patients would frequently come to hospital, and follow-up of more than 3 months would be very difficult for you to do. It is only 1.5 years of 1.5 years you get for your dissertation. Don't go for too many follow-ups. Okay, you can keep at least 2 follow-ups in 2 months or 3 months time should be enough. If you are comparing 2 groups and comparing their effectiveness and safety, then you are going ahead and doing a randomized study. So please, objective and your design should match. Please keep that in your mind, and your design should be perfect. And if you are, most of you will be choosing healthy controls for your studies, but those that matching should be correct. It is a case to case matching.
Last 5 minutes questions chat and kalsbidi. We'll read out the chat questions and you'll answer as much as last 5 minutes.
Okay. So next is your inclusion and exclusion criteria, where again most of you would not write. One is inclusion criteria, write the age, and please don't write some random numbers here. If you want to do the study in adults, then you say 18 to 60 years. If you want to study in your elderly population, then 60 and above, till you can give a cutoff. Don't just write the numbers like 19 to 82 and all that, which has absolutely no meaning. Okay, so age criteria, and then gender, right, whomever you are including in the study. And the second, all of you are going to say patient who's willing to give us informed consent. Okay, there's a format which you can take from your seniors, informed consent, and it has to be there in English, Kannada and Hindi ideally. Okay, and that will be getting attached as an annexure. And then third most important thing is, if I'm going to do a study on diabetic patients, okay, then I'm going to say in the third inclusion criteria is, I'm going to include all the diabetes patients based on how am I going to diagnose, based on American Diabetic Association guidelines. Okay, so for this, this is the most important definition which you are going to give in your inclusion criteria, and most of you miss it also. And sometimes you may not have any guidelines, then you can go with definitions from a textbook. And sometimes you will say that I'm clinically suspecting it. Then at that time you have to say, I'm going to clinically suspect this for patients with a temperature of this much, WBC of this much. Or sometimes you may say sonographically confirmed patients. Okay, so how you are selecting your population, based on what are you diagnosing your study population, should come out here, and it should be based on some guidelines. Okay, so most of you miss that. Please make sure that you all write that. And exclusion criteria is informed consent not given, or any relevant medical conditions or investigations. Just don't copy from your original articles. We'll ask you in your review why it is excluded. It could be pregnancy and lactation, but OBG guys may not have it. But others, if you are writing it, then hypersensitivity to medicines which are being used, and anything which is relevant to your study can come out here. But in this section, what do we normally see is that how do you diagnose your patient based on some guidelines will be missing in your synopsis, which we all want you to write. Make sure that you write your guidelines properly with a reference to it. Okay. So next is your methodology. These are the sentences which all of you are going to write the same. After obtaining approval from Institutional Ethics Committee, the patients fulfilling the inclusion criteria will be enrolled for the study, and informed consent will be obtained from that. And then you are going to write it as Annexure 1. And then please understand or write down, after your references, you are going to paste all your annexures in the same file. Okay, when we are uploading to the university, they give us only one Microsoft Word file which can be uploaded. So ideally, and please don't take a photo of your informed consent and try to paste it there and all that. It increases the size of the file and it doesn't get uploaded to university. Okay, any annexure you want in your study, please don't put it in a photo format. Okay, please type it. Then for all the pediatric PGs and other PGs are going to use children between 12 and 18. In addition to informed consent from the parents, we also want an assent form for the children. Okay, that is between 12 and 18. That will come out as an annexure 1A. Please, all the pediatric PGs and PGs who are planning to use, when do a study between 12 and 18-year-olds, please get an assent form. And most of you will take the same informed consent and make the child sign it and give it as an assent form, which is wrong. Please don't go through the WHO website and get an assent form. Assent form always has a patient information sheet. In that, in case if the child is asking, when should I come to your clinic? Okay, what will you do to me in your clinic? How much blood are you going to draw? All those questions will be there in the assent form with patient information sheet that we want to see if you are using, if you are doing a study between 12 and 18-year-olds. Then you need to give us a case record form. Okay, Annexure 2, all your seniors have it. You can just have a look at it. It will have all the demographics, vitals, and what are all the relevant parameters which you are going to measure for your study. That's the case record form, which should be pasted as Annexure 2. Okay, and then study groups and sampling method. Most of you don't write the sampling method. Say for example, my study involves all the diabetic patients coming to medicine OPD. Okay, so and the diabetic clinic is on Monday and Thursday. Then we can always say that sampling is Monday and Thursday. Whoever comes to the clinic, I cannot be taking all 50 patients to my study. So there should be some way I'm going to select my patients. It's easier to say simple random computer generated numbers for sampling. Okay, so it might tell you take the 14th and 18th patient today, then you can take them. But if you say convenient sampling, your sample size increases. So you please make sure that there is a sampling method in your synopsis. And then you say details of how data will be collected. You may take up all the clinical data, investigations, all the drugs used by the patients, and all that you have to write in this methodology. And one more is, if you're planning to use a questionnaire, this is the most common mistake done by everybody. Please make sure that you are going to use a free questionnaire. Questionnaire which is in the website is not always free. Even your MMSC is also paid. You have to pay $1 per patient to use MMSC. So you might use now, but when you try to publish it, it will never get published. Okay. And some questionnaires may require a simple permission from your from the author. Okay, if you just say that you are a student and you're doing a dissertation on this, they will give you permission and send you an email. Okay, so please keep that email with you. And or you, most of the time, I think you can select a free questionnaire. If it is paid, then you pay them and collect the permission letter from them. So if you're using a questionnaire in your synopsis review meeting, we will ask you whether it is free or whether you have obtained permission. If you have obtained permission, you have to show the permission to us. Okay, so that's about your methodology. And there is something called as outcome measures. Okay, so when you are comparing like two treatments, then how are we going to measure the outcome? So you might say complete cure, partial cure, or failure, or relapse, or death. And complete cure, you might say, what is complete cure? Complete absence of clinical symptoms are taken as complete cure, or something like that. These operational definitions should be given to us. You may say success and failure. Okay, success is discharged without any complications by 7 days after surgery is considered to be a successful technique. So like that, your operational definitions should come out in your outcome measures. Okay, now coming to statistical analysis, please make sure that you write which software is being used. Either you're using SPSS or Instat or Microsoft Excel, write that. If you're doing a descriptive study, you can say that we are analyzing using mean, standard deviation, percentage, wherever applicable. And then if you are using analytical studies, please consult the staff. First, you read your articles properly and select the statistical tests, and then you write the appropriate test. Please don't say that I'm going to use an appropriate test. We want the name of the parametric or non-parametric test which you are going to use. Once you give out this document as synopsis, when you're doing your dissertation, we cannot just change any statistical analysis. So I want all of you to read your articles properly and then decide which statistical test you are going to use, and consult a statistician and confirm whatever you have understood is right before putting it on the paper. And this section also is most often very incomplete. So please do that properly. Next, 7.3, special investigations to achieve the objectives should be mentioned. Then you write all the special investigations. If you are doing only routine investigations, just say that routine investigations are done. You need not have to list everything. 7.4 is whether ethics committee clearance is obtained. You can say submitted. At the end, you can change. Once you get it, you can change it as S. Okay, now coming to list of references, again, most of the time, this is the one which gives us a lot of problem in your review. It is called a Vancouver style. I've given you an example of journal and a book. Okay, say for example, journal article, you can write up to 6 names, and then the rest should be written as et al. Okay, and the first name is an initial. Say for example, the name of this person is Henry Garcia. but we are going to write it as Garcia H. Okay, the next one's name could be Alex Lescano. Then we are going to write it as Lescano A. The first name is always an initial. The last name comes first. Like that, you are going to write 6 names, and then you are going to, after et al, you're going to put a full stop, and then say write the title: Efficacy of Combined Treatment with Praziquantel and Albendazole in Neurocystic full stop. Then, which is the name of the journal? British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology. But please note down here, you have to write the short form of it. Okay, BR is British, J for journal, Clin is clinical, Pharmacol is pharmacology. Okay, we want all of you to write this short form. If you don't know, you Google it, it will give you the short form. We don't want you to write the full name of it. Okay, it is an international abbreviation and you all have to follow it. And after this, year of publication, semicolon, volume, then page number and full stop. All this should be there. And then you, most of you will write very incomplete references. It just shows that you are very lazy. Okay, it is not a very it doesn't require too much IQ to write a journal article properly in Vancouver style. It just shows that you are not very responsible when you're writing it. So please don't write it. Many synopses will, those who are provisionally registered also will come back saying that Vancouver style is not followed. And I think it's a shame really that we cannot follow Vancouver style. It is very easy to write. Okay, and then there are a lot of softwares like Mendeley and all that. I think you can start getting used to it. Then the software itself, I think, will give out the Vancouver style. You can check with that. Then chapter in a book is completely written in another form. You will write the names of the authors who have written that particular chapter, which is the name of the book is Principles of Drug Therapy. In Kligman, Baron, Jensen, Stanton, these are the editors. You are going to write the name of the editors. Then your Principles of Drug Therapy is the name of the chapter. Which is a textbook, Nelson Textbook of Pediatrics, 18th edition, volume 1. And who are the publishers? The Philadelphia Saunders Elsevier, 2007, page 331 to 32. So these 2 examples are there in your checklist also. So please see whether you have written all the components of the reference which you give, and then how many we allow up to 15 references, of which 2 should be textbooks. Okay, 2 should be textbooks, and then they all should be put in the right order in the whole document. Then what are the other details? 9th is that signature of the candidate, remarks of the guide. Your guide is going to write in 2 or 3 sentences why this study is important. Okay, a name and designation of your guide, co-guide if there is a co-guide, then HOD of the department will do. 12th is remarks of the principal and signature will be done by the PG section. So don't worry about that section. Your job is to fill 9, 10 and 11. And now what do we do with the format? Normally we take Times New Roman. We use Times New Roman. For all the main headings, go for size 14, and the subheadings like need for the study and review of literature, go with font size 12 and bold. Okay, all the other words can be font size 12 and not bold. And then, as I told you before, everything should be in MS Word document, and please don't paste any photos. All your annexures, everything will be pasted after references, and there should be no photos. If there are photos, definitely you cannot upload it. It increases the size of the file. You cannot upload. As far as possible, you please type it. And then I think all of you can just take a snapshot or something of this article, how to calculate sample size for different study designs. The article gives you the formulas. You can just go through it and see which design you are going to decide, and then based on that put the formula, and after the formula how you are going to substitute the numbers. I have already told you. So substitute those numbers properly and then give the reference, and that ends your I'll just show you some of the formulas. If you are using 2 means, the formula will look like that. Okay, if it's a qualitative variable, the formula will look like this. For case control, the formula will look like this. And then these are like, if you're doing a correlation study, then you say Pearson correlation. If it's qualitative data, you're going to say chi-square test examples. Okay, so that finishes the synopsis orientation program for today. If you have any doubts, you can email us pharmacologybmcri@gmail.com. Okay, it's one word, pharmacologybmcri@gmail.com. But I think most of your doubts will be sorted out by your guides. But still, I think if you have some doubts, you can put it in the chat box. We'll try and see for another 5 minutes if there is something we can. Chat box. Okay, if anyone has any doubts, then you can put it here. Otherwise, as I told you, you can email to us pharmacologybmcri@gmail.com. And this is Dr. Sushma. I'll be available to you in pharmacology department in case if you have further details. As I told you, most of it would be done by solved by your guides itself. And then how much time do you have to do your synopsis? I will tell you, hardly 15 or 20 days. Please select your topic and finish writing in another 15 days. We might give you dates for review by December end itself. So please, there is no word limit for objective. So word limit is exclusively to be followed for need for the study, not to cross more than 250 to 300. The other things are not, there is no word limit. Okay. So by 15 days, we want you to be ready with your synopsis. We might start giving you the dates for each department by end of December. January, we have to go through the ethics committee, and after that you have to format everything and upload it. Okay, so please keep the COVID situation in mind before you select the topic, and all the best to all of you. Thank you very much. We will see you in the synopsis review.